So this video will be my spoiler review for Thor Love and Thunder, which just came out this past week. So if you enjoyed this video today, feel free to like and subscribe for future Marvel content. This is a spoiler warning for all of the contents and events in Thor Love and Thunder. Spoiler warning. So the way I usually do these spoiler reviews is I have to kind of break down the movie bit by bit and maybe talk about some of these bits. So it is going to kind of be like a recap of the movie as well while I'm talking about it. So the beginning of the movie opening with Gorr and his daughter dying because of a lack of sustenance needed to survive. I thought it was really well done to establish Gorr's motivation, although I do wish there was a little bit more. We are introduced to Gorr and his daughter already actively dying, and I felt like it would have been slightly more impactful if we had seen normal bonding moments with Gorr and his daughter, or even the rest of his people before the famine clearly took place and wiped them all out, to truly show how frustrated Gorr is that there was a god there the whole time that could have saved them, and the god was selfish and just chose not to. So the sword still being the all-black necro sword in the comics, I was really happy about that. And I also respected the differences from the comics that the sword had, because in the comics, the sword is tied to the symbiote god Null, which is definitely a property that's owned by Sony because it ties into Venom. So instead, the MCU tied the concept of the sword to the Shadow Realm instead of the symbiotes, and I thought that was a really cool decision for them to do. And it resulted in a lot of cool visual things, like Gorr being able to literally disappear in the shadows and reappear wherever he wants. I thought that was really cool. And then the montage of Thor traveling with the Guardians of the Galaxy and getting back in shape at the beginning, I thought that was a really cool way to kind of just recap what he's been doing this whole time. And it was also a funny way to tell it by way of Korg telling a story to a group of people on the planet that they're on. So the opening fight scene was good and a good way to get people interested, but after this opening fight scene, I felt the movie was pretty rushed until about the point when they reached Omnipotent City. Something that I felt that could have been better would have been, instead of seeing in the wake of Gorr's killing spree, already seeing all the gods dead, instead they could have actually showed him killing various gods, as well as maybe fighting Sif and injuring her as bad as he did. Seeing just how deadly Gorr's rampage was might have helped me, at least, make the story feel more severe in terms of the stakes of what's going on than the movie actually managed to accomplish. I honestly forget exactly when this next thing happened in the events of the movie, but I know somewhere in the beginning sequence, we do see Jane Foster going through cancer treatments, and she's trying to research potential ways to cure herself, and she gets the idea to maybe look into the mythology behind Thor and Asgard after essentially hearing Mjolnir call out to her to come to New Asgard. So Thor goes to New Asgard after seeing the wake of all the gods dying, after Sif tells him Gorr is going to go to Asgard next. And then he shows up in the Black Berserkers, which I'm assuming they're still being referred to as the MCU. I don't think they were actually called anything in this movie, but they're called the Black Berserkers in the comics. The Black Berserkers are already there attacking everybody, and he sees Jane Foster there, who has already transformed into the mighty Thor after Mjolnir reformed itself, and she was able to pick it up. Now, truth be told, up until this point, I was about to be upset, if they just allowed her to wield Mjolnir after all this time in the MCU has been spent solidifying that not just anybody would be able to wield Mjolnir, and that you would have to be worthy. It's not that I don't think Jane Foster shouldn't be worthy, but in the context of the MCU, I don't think we would have gotten enough screen time with Jane Foster to think that she is worthy. However, in my opinion, they make up for it. Well, I shouldn't even say make up for it. That's what I thought they were going to do at first, but they made instead the really good decision to have a flashback at their past relationship where Thor tells Mjolnir in kind of a semi-drunken state, at least it looked like to me, to promise to always protect her no matter what, which ends up actually enchanting Mjolnir so that Jane is able to wield it in present day. I thought that was a really smart and clever decision for them to make. Gorr ends up capturing a group of Asgardian kids, which leads to Thor, Jane, Valkyrie, and Korg going to Omnipotent City for help. Up until they got to Omnipotent City, everything in the movie before this point so far felt rushed to me, and there wasn't a specific plan for them to get from point A to point B. I want to actually see the movie again to see if my feelings about this aspect change, but right now, I think the first half of the movie, feeling really erratic, did a major disservice to the movie as a whole, because I really enjoyed the second half way more than I did the first half. But once they got to Omnipotent City, they try to enlist the help of Zeus and the other gods, which Zeus refuses, and results in a fight with the guards of Omnipotent City. That's going to be a hard word to keep on saying. They also learn that Gorr is after the cosmic being Eternity, not to necessarily kill Eternity, but rather to get one wish granted, which I guess is a part of like a myth of Eternity, with his wish that he wants granted being that all the gods will be killed. And then Zeus, in this fight that kind of emerges, the skirmish, Zeus seemingly kills Korg, which causes Thor to seemingly kill Zeus in a fit of rage, but Korg is actually revealed to be still alive, albeit just a talking rockhead. They escape from Omnipotent City and head to Gorr's location in the Shadow Realm, where on the way there, Thor and Jane have like a romantic moment, and they seemingly essentially make up and get back together again. They find where Gorr is, and Jane realizes that he needs Stormbreaker to open up the gate to Eternity by way of the Bifrost, and Thor, Jane, and Valkyrie attempt to fight Gorr head-on, which leads to a retreat by the three of them after Valkyrie and Jane get pretty messed up. And they try to go to New Asgard by way of the Bifrost, but once it's called, Gorr rips Stormbreaker from Thor's hand, and it stays with Gorr while the three of them disappear back to New Asgard. While they're there, Jane's cancer is revealed to be getting worse because every single time she picks up Mjolnir, it's actually draining her mortal energy. Thor says he'll go to stop Gorr by himself because Jane's weak and Valkyrie got injured in the fight, and he takes Zeus's lightning bolt with him as a weapon, which Valkyrie took with her before leaving Omnipotent City. So once Thor uses Zeus's bolt to travel back to Gorr's location, he finds the children there that Gorr had kidnapped, but also finds Gorr already in the process of opening the gateway to Eternity. Gorr summons more black berserkers to attack Thor and the kids, but Thor enchants all of the objects that the kids are holding to temporarily give them all the powers of Thor so that they can fight back. And honestly, that whole scene where he like enchants all their weapons so that they're all their eyes start glowing yellow and stuff, and they're all super strong, I just thought was a really fun decision for them to make, and I honestly loved the last act of this movie. I thought it was really cool to see all the kids go up against the black berserkers and just rip them apart. Thor tries to fight Gorr, but he is unable to do it by himself, and that's when Jane actually shows up on Valkyrie's Pegasus to help Thor finish the fight. They break the all-black Necrosword, which was the source of Gorr's power. However, as they do this, he escapes into the realm of Eternity. And then Thor gives Heimdall's son, which was one of the kids who was kidnapped, he gives him Stormbreaker to use for the Bifrost for the kids to return to safety to New Asgard, when him and Jane also enter the realm of Eternity. And Jane at this point is basically on her deathbed because she had used Mjolnir one final time, and that was basically all she could do, and Gorr is about to make his wish to Eternity. Thor ends up telling Gorr he is won, but he also convinces Gorr that what he seeks is not actually revenge in the form of the death of all the gods, but he actually seeks love in the form of his daughter again. So instead of killing all the gods, Gorr wishes for Eternity to bring his daughter back to life. Once his daughter is resurrected, we see a reflection of her in the water where she actually looks like Eternity herself. In my ending and post-credit scene video, I actually said it could be possible that she could grow up to be Captain Universe because of this kind of nod, but I actually think it would make more sense for her to grow up to be Singularity based on how she looked in that scene. In the comics, Singularity is a cosmic entity that seems to be a sentient kind of quantum singularity and is associated with the A-Force. Jane fades into the same type of energy that Odin did in Ragnarok, where it's like the bright light that she just fades away into, and Gorr makes Thor promise to take care of his daughter, to which Thor agrees to. Gorr also dies in this moment because the Necrosword was the only thing keeping him alive, but it was also simultaneously infecting him like a disease, which is why as soon as it broke, he died. So the movie ends with Thor taking care of Gorr's daughter because she is now essentially Thor's own daughter, and they are on an alien planet and protect the people there from enemies who go to harm them. And in the last scene, Thor wields Mjolnir again while she is wielding Stormbreaker. The post-credit scenes of this, the first one shows Zeus living his attack from from Thor in Omnipotent City, and he asks his son Hercules to go kill Thor, and the second post-credit scene of this shows Jane materializing in Valhalla being greeted by Heimdall, which I thought was a really fun scene and a good scene for her overall arc as a character. So overall, like I said, the first half of this movie, feeling as disorganized as it did this movie a good disservice, because it felt so rushed. It really just felt like, and it felt like an event taking place in the MCU and not a story that I'm supposed to care about too deeply. And it's unfortunate that I have to say that, because they introducing something like the concept of the cosmic entity eternity for the first time, I was really hoping it would land harder for me, but it just didn't land the way I wanted it to. With that being said, I still don't think the movie was bad. I really don't. I thought it was a fun watch. I really hope I feel differently about the first half of the movie after watching it again and maybe having more time with it. But I'll also say that I feel the MCU has had a problem with an inconsistent pacing lately. As much as I've enjoyed Multiverse of Madness and No Way Home, the beginning of those movies felt rushed when I watched them the first time too. And on the flip side of that, the finale of most of the MCU Disney Plus shows also feel rushed to me, with maybe the exception of Loki and Moon Knight. I also feel like the MCU is kind of suffering from a lack of cohesiveness right now, which is to be expected because they're kind of in a new phase one. You know, we can speculate that it's moving towards an event like Secret Wars, which you can almost guarantee after Multiverse of Madness that's where it's going. But until it's a little more evident in which direction all of the puzzle pieces are moving, it loses a little bit of charm to it as well. Now, I don't think the MCU has to be connected 100% of the time to be good. I really don't. But with this movie not really being connected to anything else, the movie itself wasn't really good enough, not necessarily bad, but it wasn't good enough to hold its own without being hyper-connected to whatever is coming in the future of the MCU, in my opinion. With that being said, it's still not a bad movie, and I would overall give it a 7.5 out of 10. So comment down below what you thought of Thor Love and Thunder, if you enjoyed it or if you thought it was bad. But if you enjoyed this video today, feel free to like and subscribe for future Marvel content, and I appreciate you for watching the video.